item on the agenda this evening is the mayor's report, and I would like the city administrator to come on camera for a bit and talk about, we heard from Nicole Miller during public comments this evening about her encounters with theft in Issaquah and her observations about what's going on. And she also had 4 questions for the council, which I think will be a little staff assignment for council president and to work on to make sure we get those questions answered and sent back out in writing. But this has been an ongoing issue over the last 8 weeks and has been reported by numerous residents. And I wonder if you could take this opportunity to provide the community information on what has been going on and what steps have been taken in the last little while. City Administrator?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. Yes, unfortunately, we have seen a rash of shoplifting at some of our large national retailers. We have spoken, the police department has spoken with those national retailers, and we've learned a lot. We've learned that mostly national retailers have a much higher tolerance of this kind of activity than I think any of us would likely imagine. And the reasons for it, as you learned about them, kind of make sense, that they are first and foremost concerned about the safety of their employees and of their customers, and their general direction to their local store managers from their regional and national offices are not to confront shoplifters. We, of course, are concerned by this as a community because, as the public speaker mentioned, there has been a rash of this. And so Mayor Pauly and our police chief have met with regional leaders of at least one of those national retailers, Target, and really have expressed the concern that while they may have policies that work regionally and nationally, under particular circumstances here in Issaquah, they need to call 911 and they need to file charges if individuals are apprehended with stolen goods. These stores have been very reluctant in the past to do that, and I think, as the public speaker had mentioned, she witnessed this firsthand. We continue to work with Target. We have been called now by Target management. We have confronted individuals. We have arrested individuals. So that is now happening. Unfortunately, because those national chains have to weigh the safety of their employees and their customers, they see this as largely a cost of doing business. Certainly what we're seeing, however, in Issaquah is beyond that, and I think we've been getting some good cooperation from the national retailers, again, specifically Target, on this. And so, Madam Mayor, if I maybe just quickly go through the 4 questions that you may save having to provide answers in writing. First was, are we concerned? And the answer is, of course, we're concerned. But it's important for everyone to remember that for a crime to happen, there has to be a complaint. The property that's being stolen, the owner of that property, in the case of a retail store, the management of that store has to be willing to file charges. If they're unwilling to file charges, that there is nothing the police can do. There's no arrest that can be made. Certainly when a police officer arrives at a store and confronts an individual, many times that individual very smartly says yes and leaves the property and leaves the premises. And so the issue is taken care of. But an arrest cannot be made unless there is a complaint filed, and that has not happened, but is happening more now with our national retailers. So certainly we are concerned. Second question, do we know how much crime is occurring in Issaquah? That's a difficult question on any day. We certainly encourage people to call 911 always. If they feel that there's a crime in progress, if they've had a property crime, we want them to call. We want to be able to file the report. We want to be able to gather information. That is a long-standing policy of the Issaquah Police Department, and we want people to do that. Have some individuals taken this as a cost of doing business? If you have an Amazon package lifted from your porch, do people every time call the police department? My guess is probably not. Again, we would encourage people to do that. It's important that we understand what these trends are. It's important for our officers to investigate, because we do find people, we do arrest people, and that is a great deterrent. If people don't report these crimes, that makes it very difficult for us to enforce. The next question regarding allowing an underground market, that's probably something beyond our ability to regulate. Individuals take property and do things with it outside the jurisdiction, and it's very difficult for us to manage that. Again, as we've said, we're certainly aware this is going on. We're working closely with those businesses to make sure that's taken care of. And then finally, why aren't police making an arrest just because they see someone go down the street with a basket full of televisions? Again, we need to have someone that's be able to press charges. We are often able to engage with the individual, and that engagement oftentimes will lead to that person either leaving the material as we find it, or we then return that material. Other times they will say, I bought it, and move on. And so our police officers have limited ability beyond that, again, unless the store is prepared to enforce that. So we are taking this very seriously. We are taking steps. I really commend our acting chief, Paul Schwan. She's been very aggressive in working with those national retailers. She has instructed our officers to respond to every single call that is received. And if we are able to do something without charges being filed, we can. And certainly the information that I've heard, and I've also seen on social media, and many of you may have as well, individuals in the community who have seen our police officers confront individuals leaving the store, and those individuals then decide not to take the goods. So it's a complicated situation. We're going to continue to be aggressive. Madam Mayor, I think that answers the question of the public commenter, and hopefully that covers the issue.
Thank you, Wally. I just want to add one personal note from the mayor is that I have reached out to economic development staff and to our police force and said that I'm willing to participate in any conversation where the story or the reason we're coming up against is because it's a corporate policy. I think Issaquah was an amazing place. I think the businesses we have here are amazing, but it's not acceptable to have a corporate policy that allows this kind of activity to occur. And that's been my message, and it will continue to be my message. So I want to thank not only Nicole for coming and sharing her story tonight, but I have spoken to a dozen other folks who have provided anecdotal information or called the police or made observations. And I appreciate that. Eyes on the street is what we need. And as our city administrator said, please, please, if you see something, say something. Sometimes we can connect the dots because 3 of you are calling about the same thing, and it helps. Everything that you can do to help us is so much appreciated, but also thank you so much for keeping your eyes on our wonderful community. I appreciate it. I'm going to move on to the mayor's report for this evening as soon as I find it. There it is. There will not be an executive session scheduled this evening. There is no executive session scheduled this evening. Did want to talk a little bit about some weather-related events because we're at that time of year. I wanted to thank our staff and partner agencies for their efforts that over Veterans Day and over the weekend and into today in response to various weather-related events. And again, thank you to emergency management, our communications team, Public Works, Police, Parks and Community Services, Eastside Fire and Rescue, and King County Emergency Management. Last week, the House passed the largest infrastructure bill in American history, which will invest $1.2 trillion over 10 years. Much of this funding will be provided to cities and states through competitive grants, and this bill will help Issaquah continue to build, renew, and plan our infrastructure for the future. The Capital Finance Community Task Force last met on November 2nd to discuss infrastructure priorities across Issaquah's needs in transportation, parks and trails, and facilities. The task force will continue to develop its recommendations and priorities at the next meeting, which is tomorrow, November 16th at 6 p.m. And the City of Issaquah's Community Emergency Response Team, or also known as CERT, provided 26 volunteers and 159 hours of support to the children vaccination site sponsored by Costco and the Issaquah School District. The CERT volunteers help with reception and attestation, check-in areas, line control management, recovery room, and goodie bag handout. At this recent multi-day event, approximately 2,300 children between the ages of 5 and 12 received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and a second dose is scheduled in early December. We are so grateful for the work of our CERT volunteers, their high energy, professionalism, and enthusiasm was noticed by our partners. Thank you again, all CERT members, for your outstanding contribution to our community. There are a couple of upcoming events. There is a virtual job fair. Issaquah is partnering with WorkSource, Seattle, King County, and other East Side cities to bring a virtual job fair to the East Side on November 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you can visit the City of Issaquah's event page to learn more and register at issaquah.gov/job fair. And registration has opened for the Issaquah Food Bank's annual Turkey Trot. Multiple courses are available throughout the weekend of November 25th to 28th to allow for social distancing. You can learn more and register at issaquahturkeytrot.org. And that concludes the mayor's report.